so let's try a common denominator. So what I'm going to do is rewrite this, and this is what I'm going to show you, the steps that you have to show, which is going to make some of you mad. Like I said, you have to show everything. What does this side need in order to be a common denominator? 1 plus cosine x. Now, whatever you do to the bottom, you've got to do to the top. This side needs sine x. And for those who are going, what? I don't understand where we get that. Remember, the surefire way to find a common denominator is to multiply by the other side, correct? That's exactly what we're doing. So on this fraction right here, it's multiplication, correct? You better FOIL up top. Okay? You better FOIL. So up top I would get 1 plus cosine x plus cosine x plus cosine squared x. I probably wrote way too big, but we'll see. Yes? Now, my tip to you, use this tip carefully. Whenever you do a conjugate or a common denominator, I would leave the bottom factored. It usually makes it easier in the long run. Now, if you don't leave it factored and you go ahead and distribute the bottom, sine x, which I can, just make sure you distribute it to both, correct? It's not going to hurt you at all, okay? But I usually leave it factored because it usually happens down the road that it's nice and neat that way.
And the numerator and the denominator across from each other, can they not cancel out? The 1 plus cosine x and 1 plus cosine x?
Well, yes, but it's going to get me right back to where I started. Which, I'm glad you brought that up, because identity is one of the biggest things. People go in circles. And it's going to happen. So if that happens to you, just be forewarned, you're warned. That you may do a whole page, even 2 pages, and then get right back to where you started. It's going to happen. Okay? But at least you're working and trying. So on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and leave that as sine x times 1 plus cosine x. You could distribute it, but I'm giving you a tip to not. This fraction gives me sine squared x, and once again I'm going to leave the bottom unfactored. You could distribute it, but you might have to factor it later. So you have to show everything I'm showing here is the bare minimum. Now that I've found a common denominator, I can go ahead and add the tops. Okay. So I'm going to have 1. Ooh, do I want to add the tops yet, or do I want to condense? Let's condense first. But you cannot do them both at once, which is going to drive some of you crazy. Because yes, I know you could easily condense those both fractions and like terms, but you are not allowed, one step at a time. Now I can go ahead and add those. When you add only the tops. Remember the bottom, there's only one of them. Never add the bottoms. Okay, so that's a beautiful common denominator. It took us a few steps, but we got there. Those are exactly the steps you need to show. So now, here's where some of us might get stuck. What do we want to do from here?
Find everything in the numerator by the denominator.
I could, but let me ask you a question. Isn't that going to get right back to where I started?
Can't we simplify the cosine itself?
You betcha. That's really the only way to go on this one. That should be alarm going off in your head. That equals 1. So I have 1 plus 2 cosine x plus 1 all over sine x, 1 plus cosine x. Now I can combine like terms. You cannot do that at once. You've got to show your substitution, then I can condense that. Okay. I will tell you this goes further. Any ideas?
Pull out 2 on the top.
You can pull out of 2. Now, for those thinking this, don't write this. Cancel. No, 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 no. You can only cancel something if it's multiplication. This is addition, correct?
Yes.
So you cannot cancel if anything is being added or subtracted. So, no on that one. So I can pull out a 2 up top. This is the unfactor kind of step that I talked about. A lot of people do not see this. They get here, and get stuck. But I can factor out a 2.
So then it's just,
And then you can cancel.
Now I can cancel because it's multiplication, right? Cancel, cancel. 2 over sine, which is beautiful, but I can make it just a tiny bit prettier.
2 cosecant x.
2 cosecant x. Doesn't matter that there's a constant there. You can go ahead and bring that up. And that's about as clean as it's going to get. And as hard as they get today. Like I said, in no way do I expect you to be able to duplicate that just yet.